Well, last thing I want to mention here is in the form of a guest that I'm going to bring up here on stage with me right now. Her name is Hannah Buell, and Hannah is a researcher and an activist in this area legally in the state of Nebraska. Hannah comes to us from the Nebraska Family Counsel, and she's going to tell us a little bit about that. She's been working for Nebraska Family Counsel since 2010. She was a graduate of UNL and has her degree in Spanish and also in, what's the other degree?
Political science.
Political science, yeah, thank you very much. And so we've invited her here today to help us understand this issue. Christ Community Church, give a nice warm round of applause for Hannah, would you please? Well, Hannah, tell us a little bit about Nebraska Family Counsel first, and what do you guys do, and how do you intersect with this issue of trafficking?
Great. Well, Nebraska Family Counsel is a nonprofit public policy advocacy organization. We are completely donor funded, and our mission is to stand for justice and strengthen families right here in Nebraska. And so we do a lot at the state legislature, getting involved with legislation and senators and committee hearings and all that sort of stuff, as well as getting out into the community like I am here today. And that's one of my passions, is to educate and equip people with the types of issues that we're struggling with in our society. And human trafficking is definitely one of those passion areas for us. We deal with several other things as well, but I am very honored to get to partner with them and work there every day and get to be a part of what Jesus is doing in our state and how his kingdom is being advanced. So I have a really great job.
Well, great. Tell us a little bit about what this issue looks like from the perspective of a person that we try to reach out to and help. You were telling me about a woman named Ashley who came to you. Tell us Ashley's story a little bit.
Ashley's mom actually was the one that contacted us. She attends the church that several of our staff members attend in Lincoln, and actually our executive director, Al Ruskowski, is a former pastor of Christ Place Church in Lincoln. And so he had a relationship and a friendship with their family and had seen Ashley grow up. And she had just recently graduated high school and was on scholarship at Southeast Community College in Lincoln when halfway through the semester, her mom started noticing her behavior was dramatically different. She was coming home at odd times, very uncommunicative, covered in bruises a lot of the time. And so finally, her mom found a few website addresses scribbled on a piece of paper, so she typed them in, and they were advertisements for her daughter to be sold to men. And she obviously, how would any mom react? She was horrified at this, and so she called the only people that she knew that were remotely engaged in this issue. And so she talked to us about it, and we got in connection with Ashley. And what had been happening is she had gotten sucked into this industry because a man basically sold her the dream that she had to do with her life. She wanted to get into the recording industry, and he was like, I can make that happen for you. I can get you a record deal, all that stuff. And in the process of doing that, put her into this human trafficking bondage and was threatening her life, was threatening her mom. He said, if you don't do whatever I tell you to do, I'm going to hurt your mom. She was still living at home at the time. He knew where she lived because every time he would call her on the phone, he'd pull up outside their house, and she would have to come out and go wherever he was taking her. So we were talking to her about this, and she was so overwhelmed because she's like, I can't do anything. I can't change and get out of this because he's going to hurt my mom. She was terrified of that. And so we're like, well, Ashley, you're 19. We can't force you to come out of this because you're not a minor anymore. But if you are ever in a place where you need help, please come call us anytime, day or night. And about 2 months later, she did. And she called us up and she's like, I am going to die if I don't get out today. I know that he's going to kill me. I don't know what to do. And so we found her a safe house, contacted the police, got her out of that situation, and we found several different restoration houses across the country, and she chose the one in New York because she wanted to get as far away as possible from Nebraska and from this guy. So that's really the story of how we got involved in Ashley's life. We had been involved in the issue before then, but that really put a face on it for us.
Wow. So imagine the trauma of that, finding out that your daughter's involved with this, and then needing to intervene and needing to get immediate help. But as you were describing that to me, it seldom ends there, does it? I mean, it's not an easy process, even once a family jumps in and risks all that they risk to try to get a family member out. What's been the rest of the story in Ashley's case?
Well, sadly, Ashley's story doesn't have a happy ending yet. She chose to leave that restoration house in New York, eventually found her way back to Nebraska, got involved in the industry again, and was moved around to Alabama and Georgia for a while, and eventually she got pregnant. She's a beautiful 2-year-old little boy right now, and she is very much addicted to the types of drugs that they use to control her, and she has been in contact with us, and so we've been very clear, like, if you want to try again, if you want to get out again, we are here for you. We will put you in contact with a different house, see if we can find something that works. But it's hard to understand sometimes, like, why, if you got rescued, why would you go back to that, right? It doesn't really make sense. But the research that we've done has shown that it's actually very common for a girl to get rescued and go back, and get rescued and go back, because of the psychological, emotional, and spiritual trauma that she has suffered at the hands of her abuser. Many of these girls struggle with the question of, where was God when this was happening to me? So they don't feel like they can connect to him. They feel like they're too dirty to even come close to him. And the resources and the healing that he wants to give them is completely shut out, and it's not a part of their life because they feel so unlovable. And these men are telling them things that reinforce that lie. And then you add on top of that all of the alcohol abuse and drug abuse and the psychological games, the violence that a lot of times is associated with this, that's used to control these girls. And so you have a perfect storm, as it were, where even if she can get out physically, her mind is still there. Her spirit and her emotions are still stuck in that place, and it's very difficult for us to break that cycle.
Well, last week, Pastor Mark told us that even here in the state of Nebraska, there's somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 people in Ashley's situation. And I hear you mentioning restoration centers and safe houses. Give us an idea what kind of facilities are available for a woman in her situation here in Nebraska.
The sad news is there is nothing like that in Nebraska right now. There are in other states, and there are more that are being developed every year, which we are very excited about. But for girls in Nebraska, they really need a residential program where they don't have to worry about where they're going to sleep at night or where they're going to find food. And here in Omaha, there's actually the Wellspring program at the Salvation Army, and they are doing great work with those women there. But the girls need a program. They don't just need a program, they need a place that's safe, where they can escape from these men and actually be separate from that. There are safe houses, obviously, in Nebraska for domestic violence and those sorts of issues. And so sometimes those can double, but the psychological reality of being in slavery, in bondage, and having to sell your body creates a whole new set of dynamics. And so we are really praying that God raises up people in our state who will not only fund such an organization, but will actually be able to give their time and their life to pouring into these girls Jesus' healing and Jesus' love. And we believe the church is the best place for that to come from, because the government cannot actually bring the love of Jesus that's going to be the only thing that really heals them, right? The only healing that's lasting, that's going to actually change their lives, is the healing that comes from him. Everything else is just human effort. And so we need the church to rise up and take ownership of this issue, because we are the ones that are actually equipped to bring them from darkness into light in so many ways.
So that's a big challenge for us. Well, in addition to advocacy and connecting with victims directly like that, what else can we do as a church to stay informed and to keep moving towards what could make us effective?
I would challenge each and every one of you, as overwhelming and tragic as this issue is, don't turn away. And that's a totally normal response. And so if you're feeling that, don't feel shame, because I'm there a lot of days at my job. It's just really, really hard. But we have an opportunity to partner with Jesus' heart for these girls. And we miss out on getting to know that side of him that's full of justice and mercy and grace and compassion. We miss out on that if we turn away when we're faced with something like this. So I would strongly encourage you, continue learning every chance you get. There are many documentaries that are out there. There are so many great resources and books that are being written. There's going to be actually a meeting after this in the chapel where we're going to talk about some of those things that you can do. So come and meet me, come and talk to us about that. Learn more about what Christ Community is doing on this issue and some stuff that we're going to do in the future. But I would also encourage you to get connected with some organizations that are on the front lines of taking ownership and trying to push back on this. A really great organization is Exodus Cry. They're based out of Kansas City, and they believe strongly that they have to connect the gospel with anti-trafficking, with this new abolition movement, because otherwise it's completely worthless. And so they're internationally based. They have safe houses in Kansas City and in other countries, but they're very focused on connecting prayer and praying about this issue to deliverance of these girls from the bondage that they're in. So they'll send emails every month with a different country that they're focusing on to pray to break human trafficking in that country. Another great resource is Polaris Project. They have a lot of great information about what's happening in the United States as a whole, and they're actually the organization that manages the National Human Trafficking Hotline. So definitely check them out. And then here in Nebraska, we would love if you would get in contact with us at Nebraska Family Counsel. You can go to our website, which is nebfc.org. That stands for Nebraska Family Counsel. And we've got a lot of different ways where we can keep you updated with what's going on right here in our state and how you can make a difference in changing human trafficking victims' lives. And just as a closing, I want to challenge you. A lot of people will say, oh yeah, I should pray about it, that's important. But we kind of put it at like tier 2 or 3, right? Because it seems like you're not actually doing anything. I want to lay that to rest. The number one thing we need from you here at Christ Community and in our state is we need people who are going to pray against the spiritual darkness of this issue, to pray to break the back of human trafficking in our state, because that does so much more than throwing money at it or any police investigation. You can actually pray and partner with Jesus as he sets the captives free right in our state. He will take you on a journey that you will never forget, and it will change your life if you connect with God over this issue.
Well, Hannah, thank you very much for being with us today. As Hannah mentioned, we're going to be available over in the chapel after the service. I'd love to give you a news brief update on what Christ Community Church is doing and what we plan to do on into the rest of this year and on into 2014. Well, let's say thanks one more time to Hannah for being with us here today, everybody. Thanks so much.